I got all 8s and 9s in my GCSEs studying the night before. This is how I did it. So, you might be thinking, this guy's crazy, this guy's an idiot, no way. He didn't get all 8s, 9s. Yeah, okay, I got 1 7, forgive me. But I did it studying 99% was the night before. Okay, some a little bit before, but most of it was the night before. Now, there's a cheat code to this. See, you need to play the game the way it's meant to be played. Your teachers tell you, let's say for GCSE English, they tell you need to read the book. I did not read the book. I got an 8. They tell you need to memorize the poem. I didn't know the poems for the day before the exam. Your maths teacher might tell you need to know all these formulae off, or you don't need to know. There is 3 techniques you need to know. The first technique is what I call the slow and easy technique, which is the month before the exam, you just do 1 hour practice questions every day. So for example, Monday you'll do English at 1 hour practice question, like you write an essay, and then maths you'll do 1 hour. Tuesday you'll do physics and you'll do biology, and then Wednesday you'll do chemistry and religious studies. I don't know, whatever you want, whatever subjects you do. Now that does not matter. This works because practice questions are all that matter. But the problem is you have to know the content. If you don't know what x squared plus 4x plus 3 factorizes into, how are you going to answer that question, right? How are you going to find the roots? Instead, you need to focus on what the hell you need to know. So for example, for me, let's say I didn't know in religious studies, I didn't know a Bible quote. Let's say I go find the Bible quote on the internet and I write it down. That's it. I don't make any notes. You don't make any nice, no. You go straight into what, for example, for RS, what quotes you need, and then you look at the mark schemes and you memorize those mark schemes like hell. Especially sciences, maths. You need to know these mark schemes like that. You get 3 marks. I remember just now I'm doing A-level further maths, right? And I got a mark in a test just for stating that 2 to the power of 2 is the same as 4. Like, as in saying that 2 to the power of 2 is the same as 4. You'd be surprised. Like, a lot of your marks, especially if you do EdXL maths, are just from writing. AQA is probably the same as well. I'm not sure about OCR though. Now, what about in the week of your exam? In the week of your exam, like let's say your exams start on the 5th. I'm talking about like the 1st, 31st or whatever. You should be doing full past papers. I know it sucks, but you should be doing full time past papers and time yourself, because this is when time crunch is crazy. You need to be finishing exams with 20 minutes left. I know that sounds crazy. You need that mindset so that if you do mess up, you have a bit of a buffer time, right? So let's say a maths paper is an hour and a half. I will time myself 1 hour 10. I have to finish it. I can't touch it after 1 hour 10. Because when you're under pressure, of course you're not going to work perfectly. You make mistakes, and that's when you'll check over it in your exams, right? So get used to being on a bigger time crunch than you need. Now this is the cheat code. This is the cheat code. The day of the exam. Now most people, they come back and they study all night and then they go to sleep. They wake up, exam. No, it's the wrong way to do things. You have to do it the other way. So me, I would go to sleep straight after my exam. I had the exam at 4 p.m. Like I'd come back from school at 4 p.m. let's say. I'd get home. I'd go to sleep from 4 p.m. to like 12 p.m. 1 a.m. right? And so I was asleep, you know, I'd got my full sleep. I'd eat and then I'd fall asleep. I'd wake up, coffee, I'd make. I'm not a doctor. I'm not advising you drink coffee if you don't want to. It's your choice. You grab every past paper from the past 5 years. You answer every question, and every question you can't answer, you go on Seneca Learning and you do that topic. Seneca Learning, people might say Seneca Learning is sick because it explains everything. It gives you small questions just to see your knowledge. From all the past papers you would have been doing, you would know the exam technique. Just do Seneca Learning, then just before the exam, this depends on the subject. So for me, let's say chemistry, I would read over the reactivity series like 1 billion times just before the paper. Now what that does is that will stay fresh. You write it down, you forget about it. So that when that question, like the reactivity series question comes up, like let's say, is copper more reactive than silver? I don't remember. You can just check, oh, I wrote down the reactivity series. As for poetry English, now I did not read the book. There's a great YouTuber called Mr. Everything English. I watched his 10-minute summaries, I think, and then his 10 quotes on each of the books I was doing. So I think I was doing Macbeth and then one other one. I don't remember. But I watched these videos. I was doing Jekyll and Hyde. So I watched these literally 20 minutes before to know the whole story. And I watched a 10-minute quote video and I'd write it down constantly. This is quote 1, this is quote 2, this is quote 3. And poems, you don't need to know all 16. You just need to know 2. Because worst comes to worst, the poem you memorized came up, you have the other one. And you just do the most basic ones. So I know I did Power and Conflict. So we had one called Bayonet Charge. I memorized the hell out of that. And even I watched a summary and I memorized the quotes. That's what I mean. I don't mean I wrote, you don't need to write notes on it. You just use someone else's off YouTube or whatever. And then I did one more, Kamikaze, right? Because you can link that to anything. And you just need to say, for example, let's say you have the question, you have 2 characters. One in poem A, which is the poem you're given. Compare this to another character from a different poem. Let's say there's the pilot guy. You compare him to this in any way possible. You just need to bring up like emotional reasons. So for example, they both were courageous. You can say that in the poem A, he was very valiant, which means like triumphant, like tried his best. He was honorable. And you just need to make these, they don't even have to be true, right? They just need to be close enough. And then you just explain why that makes you feel some way, why that makes the reader, or like why that makes the reader, you are the reader in this case, why you think the writer wrote it, and then connect it to something else. And the connection can be anything. I'm going to be honest, I wrote the dumbest connections in my English exams. I think I ended ended up writing for one of them. It was literally along the lines of, like, in story A, which was given like the chunk which they give you in the paper, he does this, this, and this. This shows how he references to hell. In another part of the book, he also mentions is hell. This shows the importance of religion within the time period. See, you can come up with anything as long as you have like a word that links pretty well. You'll be fine. As for your English stories, you write the same story every time. You see this guy, Mr. Everything English. I've been praising this guy in this video. He was so right when he said, just make a story and remember and read it the day of your exam. As in, I wrote a story. I showed my English teacher. She was like, yeah, this would get like 36, 37. I said, fine. I memorized that story. I wrote the same thing in the exam, but I adapted it. So I think my question, like, let's say your question is, write a story about a time you had a pet, like, let's say any pet. My story, I wrote a very simple one of just a guy going up to heaven, getting sent back down to hell. And there's a full structure. You can find that in the Mr. Everything English video. I'll link his channel in the description, everything. You just need to adapt that. So I said I had a duck friend walking with me the whole time. They're not very specific about it. Like, they don't care if it's not too accurate as long as it's mentioned somewhere. They're not going to mark you down for it. As for maths, practice questions the day of the exam. Come in clutch. Do the grade 7, the grade 8, the grade 9 questions. You know how to answer the grade 1, the grade 2 questions if you're a grade 7, 8, 9 student. The grade 4 and 5 should be like, you should be able to do like that. But the grade 7, 8, 9 are hard. I'm not going to lie. Like, even as an A-level student, I have to think about them. It should just be you doing. So for example, the 20, like, go on physics and maths tutor and maths genie, go for all the specimen papers and do just the last 5 questions of the paper when you're on a time crunch, because those are the kind of questions you're going to need critical thinking. So for example, in my GCSE paper, I had to make one triangles inside a massive square and a massive circle, I think it was. And unless I had done a bunch of random questions where I have to think really outside the box, I would not have seen that in my paper. And luckily I got the question right. I think I did anyway. So yeah, I mean, that is the cheat code to GCSEs that your teachers will never tell you. Real shit's over. Have a great day.